So, um, when Matthew Sercely crashed the scene and started offering advising, I was pretty excited about it, but I wasn't sure I could afford it. Then I figured out how to afford it, and then I realized the true benefit was it forced me to track my stuff. So thank you. Um, and it was funny because it's like, okay, here's all the stuff I'm doing. Here's all the finances. Am I structured? Like having those sorts of discussions with somebody who has a broad understanding of different aspects of business structure, how to track expenses, things we may not be aware of that are considered expenses, and how to document them so that if somebody asks to see proof, you've thought about that ahead of time and you're not running around asking people to print receipts 5 years later, for example. Nobody ever has to do that, right? No, that's not a thing. I also noticed that heat printed receipts are not, they don't last 7 years in your attic. It's like, here's my black receipt, right? Anyway, but it's more than that. He's turned out to be a good friend over the years, and he's a really great dad. And it's turned into a very mutually satisfactory relationship. I don't know how else to describe it, but today he's going to talk to us. Playing it safe on taxes is the real danger. In case you can't read it in the giant words behind my head, I was just talking until people got settled down, so that when he talks, you listen to him. Let's hear it from Matthew Sercely.
So most CPAs, most lawyers, most normal people will tell you play it safe. You don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. You don't want to get nasty letters from the IRS. Just play it safe, be conservative, don't get in trouble. That is the conventional wisdom. And like most conventional wisdom, it's, in the words of the great John Pagliano, bullshita. There's the safe pass, and it has little or no risk, and it has little or no reward. Now, I'm an attorney, but I'm also a math guy, a science guy. I like numbers. So I've got an example. Let's say you have a business. You've got a business, and there's 10 different kind of gray area. Can I deduct this? Can't I deduct this? Maybe, maybe not. And let's say each of those 10 saves you $1,000 on your taxes by taking them. So you take them all, you're saving $10,000 in taxes every single year. But well, Mr. Safe doesn't. He takes zero deductions, he saves $0. Mr. Risky, well, unfortunately, the IRS came in. The IRS said, you know, some of those deductions, you're not allowed to take those deductions. Those aren't allowed, those don't qualify, whatever. So, but you took all the deductions for 6 years. And then the IRS came in, okay, of those 10, 3 of them, no, you can't do that. So you got to pay back 3 years because it only goes back 3 years. So 3 years at $3,000, $9,000, and there's some interest and penalties. That'll be about $2,000. And you know what? You got $49,000 left in your pocket because you got the deductions, the disallowed deductions for the first 3 years you took them, and you got the other 7 deductions for the full 6 years. And next year, when you take them again, you're going to save another $7,000 and another and another. Playing it safe guarantees you lose. But we're not actually talking about taxes today. This is a talk about risks. When is it a good idea to take a risk? When is it a bad idea to take a risk? What are prudent risks? And in my life, the real risk is not taking risks. In this world, with the current economy, with the current setup, with everything going on, if you play it safe, you will lose. And you know that for a fact. Now, it doesn't mean you want to take stupid risks. Cashing out your 401k and buying lotto tickets, you're also going to lose. So we want to be prudent. We want to be careful. We want to look at the upsides and the downsides of things. We want to be smart and not reckless in our risks. So, who here does not have a business but wants to start a business? Okay. If you quit your job tomorrow and start your business, that is definitely a very bad idea. Almost certainly you will not succeed. Because that's an all or nothing throw of the dice, and you don't even know the odds on the dice. With the smart risk, you maybe start something while you have your job. Maybe that fails. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you try something else. Maybe you pivot. You quit your job, you go all in. That's the reckless risk. And I've done this. I've started multiple businesses. Most of them have not worked out very well for me. I had a partner in a business. It was not a good partnership. I left that partnership, which was good. The way I left that partnership was not good. It cost me a tremendous amount of money. And it left me in a position where I had very limited options for a while. And so I had to start my own business after I left that joint business without doing anything that harmed that previous business. And I had no income coming in. I went about $40,000 into debt in that business before I finally gave it up. Eventually, I paid that off. But that was a reckless risk. I would have been far better off being smart about how that partnership ended, or going and getting a job and building back up my reserves and trying something on the side. Whether you have a job, whether you have a business, no matter what is going on, you are an entrepreneur, or you should be. Entrepreneurship is not just about having your own business and being self-employed. Entrepreneurship is about acting. It is about looking at the situation, making a calculated risk assessment, and then doing something. I've taken many actions in my life that did not work out. That doesn't mean they were the wrong action to take. You know, most people in here have probably started a business at some point. Some of us have succeeded very well. Some are still working on it. Some of us have, like myself, started something and failed, starting something and failed, started something and failed, started something, okay, that worked a little bit. Started something, oh, that failed too. By being prudent in your risk, you have a lot of upside, you limit your downside. Pretty much everyone in this room took a huge risk the first time they signed up to come to this workshop. You probably didn't know anybody here. If you did, you knew one or two people. You had no idea what it was going to be like. You had no idea if it was going to be worth your time, worth your money. I know anybody who's been here for 2 years or more can say, that was the right decision to come here. Hopefully, all of our new people are saying it was the right decision to come here. But it was a risk. I have a business. You all know that. I help people with taxes. I started it 5 years ago. I am where I am today because of risks I've taken. I started listening to Nicole's podcast. I had 3 clients. When she mentioned she was looking for a CPA to come to her April workshop and talk about taxes. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, Nicole, we met at Jack's workshop. You know me. I've got a tax business. I'd love to come talk at your workshop. 3 days later, I'm listening to the podcast and I hear apparently I'm going to the workshop to present. She did that to me again a few other years later. That action was a risk. She could have said no. She could have said yes, and then I show up at the presentation, I do a terrible job because I knew a lot, but compared to today, I knew nothing. But that risk gave me confidence that, hey, somebody else is willing to take a risk on me. It gave me social capital in this group once I presented, once you got to know me, you knew me, and that opened up more doors. Now, about the same time, I had a friend with a podcast, and I asked to be on his podcast, and that was the first podcast interview I ever did. 2 months later, somebody listened to that podcast, contacted me, and hired me. And so I said, well, real business has got to find clients. I can't just go to everybody I know and say, hire me. I'm going to run out of people I know. So I started looking at being on podcasts, and it's like, okay, there's this one, there's that one. Nicole knows me. I'd love to be on her podcast. I scheduled to be on her podcast. I contacted some other people. And then Jack Spirko came on the air one day and said, hey, I just opened up the guest form again. It's probably going to be open for 2 to 3 weeks. Then who the heck knows when I'm reopening it? He had me on the podcast, which led to more clients, which led to more people knowing about me, which led to more social capital, which led to more podcasters agreeing to let me appear on their show. Fast forward another year. Business is not going great. It's probably one of the 5 times that I've been sitting there going, well, I've made money on the business, but in the past 6 months, I've lost money on the business, and it's taking a lot of time, and I got to do something. And I was part of a weekly accountability group for businesses. And so I said, okay, literally 90% of my business has come from being a guest on podcasts. So my activity for this week is I'm going to contact 10 different podcasters and ask to be on their podcast. Now, we met on Tuesdays, but I had a lot of stuff going on Tuesday, a lot of stuff going on Monday, and it's Sunday at about 7 p.m. I'm like, well, I've contacted 5 people, and I don't want to go back and tell everybody I didn't do what I said I was going to do. So let's find 5 more podcasts. And I'm looking at, oh, that'd be a great one. Can't find contact information. Oh, we'll try that one. They want $4,000. No. I found 4 pretty quickly. And I was just having trouble finding the 10th, that last one. And this was actually an accountability group that was part of a Tom Woods community. And I've been a Tom Woods follower forever. And so I just said, you know what? I happen to have Tom Woods' email because he and I emailed back and forth once before. He's not going to have me on. But if I just contact him, I can tell this group of people, hey, I did my 10. So I remember very distinctly, it was about 8:20, 8:25 that I emailed him saying, hey, and it wasn't just like, hey, can I be on your show? It was a professional email. I had links to other podcasts I've been on, including particularly Jack Spirko, who had been a guest on his show several times, using that social capital. And I kid you not, 17 minutes later, I get an email back from him saying, this is perfect. I'd love to have you on. My guest for Tuesday just canceled. Are you free? I was not free. I got myself free. That has become another friendship. That has become a very good relationship. And frankly, that is where a majority of my clients have come from, is Tom Woods and his people and his network. That in part came out of that email. And I know people who have bugged podcasters so much that podcaster won't have them on as a guest now, even if they'd be happy to have them on now because they bugged them so much years ago. That was a risk to contact him. It was a risk to go on that episode. If I made a fool of myself, I would have made a fool of myself in front of a very, very large audience. The reason I am here today, the reason I'm able to live the life I live today, I can chase it back to risk after risk after risk. And even the ones that didn't work. And yes, I did pay money to go on a number of podcasts. I probably wasted $3,000 or more appearing on podcasts that did not lead to anything that I could track. But, I also spent $4,000 being on podcasts that led to me making $15,000. Yeah, sometimes you make the risk and it doesn't work. That doesn't mean it was a bad risk. Entrepreneurs act, other people just sit there waiting for things to get better. They're not going to. There's the human side. It's not just business, it's family. Again, most of the people here, most of the people listening are probably men. Asking out a girl the first time is not a lot of fun. It's risky. From what I understand, it's a lot riskier today because it's not just, her group of 3 or 4 friends who may make fun of you. She could post that on Facebook. Yeah, I'm old, I know. But we all know you got to take that risk. You got to ask somebody else. You got to ask somebody else. Another risk is ending that relationship you shouldn't be in. I remember my first serious girlfriend. We were together for 6 months. If I had stayed with her, she would have married me. Her father was an attorney. He would have hired me. I would have probably made 3 times at my first job what I ended up making if I had just stayed with her and worked for her dad. But it wasn't the right relationship. But I had never been in a serious relationship. Breaking up with her was at the time maybe the hardest thing I ever did. And I did not do it well.
What day did you break up with her on?
It was the day we were celebrating Christmas together. It wasn't actually Christmas. It was when I came to come back. In my defense, she asked me while we were opening presents. I was going to wait another day or two to not do it on Christmas. But that's a risk. I know a lot of people here who have been in relationships, who have been in marriages that were not the right marriage for them. It's hard to end that. And religiously, I have some opinions about that. But practically, you got to do what you got to do. Now, ending a relationship is also a risk. Staying in the relationship every day is also a risk. You got to weigh those risks. Anyone here want to stand up and say a risk they've taken sometime recently that worked out for them?
I got laid off a couple years ago. I was interviewing with a bunch of places. I had 2 interviews in the bag. Like, I was waiting for offers. Recruiter called me up and was like, "Hey, I have an opportunity." And I was like, "I don't want to go through this again." Like, they were stressful. And the guy was like, "Will you just at least talk to them for 15 minutes? And I was like, "I'm driving an hour, why not?" And it led to a better job, making more money than I would have made at either place. Like, I was like, just took the risk. I just went for it and it turned out well.
So I think most of us in here really love Jack and Nicole. They've both talked in their podcasts about the risks they took. And yes, I'm calling you out. Nicole had a job that she made way more money than most people will ever make in their life. And it was killing her.
Literally.
And she left that job. And she does not make that much money even today. And there is a good chance, I think, she will not like to make that much money. And if she does, it'd be great. And if she doesn't, it was a good choice to make. We've all heard Jack's story as we've listened. Leaving six-figure jobs for jobs paying $40,000. Then the bigger risk, having that conversation with the wife. But I think most of us can look at where Jack is today and say, hopefully not in a poverty mindset way, man, that must be nice. How do I get there? Well, if you want what nobody else has, you have to do what nobody else is willing to do. And a big part of that is risk. And as Pugliano talked to us last talk, we as humans don't like taking risks because bad things can happen. Attorneys are particularly bad at this. My training, attorneys training, is always so conservative. Doctor training is so conservative. As engineers, although I know less about that. But if you're a doctor and you kill somebody, but you did it the right way, you don't get in trouble. If you're a lawyer and you lose a case, but you followed the rules, you don't get in trouble. I worked with some great lawyers to become a better lawyer before I did the tax stuff, while I did personal injury. And I remember somebody saying, well, you should ask this question of this witness. Because if you ask that question, the jury's going to hate them and you're going to win. And they said, but that's irrelevant. They'll object. And he said, so what? The jury still heard the question. What do I care if the jury didn't hear the answer? They knew the answer from the question. And maybe they don't object. And the last time I was in trial, I did exactly this, and they didn't object. And that question that was not allowed got asked, and I did a lot better in that case. Now, it's kind of a terrible example because the risk in that is, who cares? Objection, sustained, okay, next question. But even that sort of risk is so hard for so many people to take, where there's really no cost to failure, except the judge said you were wrong. The judge is going to forget that in 10 minutes. So this is something I try to do about monthly. I look at, where am I playing it too safe? Now, there are places to play it safe, right? You know, I am not healthy right now. I am not going to go bungee jumping because that would be incredibly physical, dangerous to me given some health conditions. That's a stupid risk. I should play that safe. And you don't want to take 30 risks all in the same day that are huge risks, right? But I try very hard, again, about once a month, to sit down and I look at these three things: money, time, freedom. What is a risk I can take? A rational, prudent risk that if I'm wrong, it doesn't cost me much, and if I'm right, I get something better. I have a much better life today. I started doing this in January. I have a much better life today than I had a year ago. And a big part of that is this. And some of them were big risks. I was advertising before this year for my business. I was spending about $400 a month. I signed a contract in May of this year to pay over $2,000 a month in advertising with a 6-month minimum commitment. that required $6,000 up front. There was no guarantee I was going to get a single client from that. Now, I actually raised my total advertising budget to $4,000 a month. I signed other deals. And you know what? Every one of those new deals, other than this one, lost me money. One of them, I spent over $2,000 over 6 months and did not get a penny from. But this one, and it was the one with the biggest risk in terms of dollar amount, but the least risk because it was advertising on the Tom Woods show where I knew there was a connection. I knew his audience meshed with me. In the first month, I got enough clients to pay for my ad spend for the 6 months. I went from being lucky to have 8 to 10 potential clients a month to not having enough time to meet with the potential clients who want to talk with me today. That was a big risk. But was it that big of a risk? And if it hadn't worked, I would have done something else and I would have found something that worked. And that's the final piece of this. When you lose on the risk, as long as you don't die, you get another shot. So don't die. That's a good rule. Don't get crippled. Don't get, but even, maybe you go bankrupt. I know people have made mistakes and they went bankrupt. I know a guy who's got a net worth of about $7 million who went bankrupt 20 years ago. If he had played it safe and hadn't gone bankrupt, he would not be worth 7 figures today. You need to be prepared and you need to be daring, or you're going to get what everybody else gets. And that's going to suck. So, slight sales pitch.
Go shameless, don't go slight.
When's the last time you looked at could you pay less money in taxes? What's the risk in talking to me? I've had people who've hired me who've lost money. We never knew that was going to happen up front, but they hired me for their business and then they got into a car accident 2 months later and had to shut the business down. They lost money by hiring me. I've had people who've taken independent contractor positions. They consulted with me to save money on taxes. The position lasted 3 or 4 months. They got fired. They lost money. It can happen. It's a risk. On the other hand, maybe you save $5,000 a year or $10,000 a year. I'm working with a very well-off gentleman that I projected to save him $1.1 million this year. Pretty good risk. Any questions, comments? Anyone want to, kind of like I did in the last one, say a risk maybe they're thinking about taking that they're going to take?
I'll share a risk while you guys get organized with your questions over here. I have a risk that I don't know if it's going to pay off or not yet, that I'm in the middle of. But on my way back from Polyface Farm, knowing that we wanted to open up the community at the Holler Hub and had not found, well, we found land, but we haven't convinced them to sell it to us yet. We'll just put it that way. But it's in process. And feeling stalled, we realized that base camp makes a good lodge. And we started figuring, and the thing is, it's also been, so I've mostly paid for myself with rental properties. They're great. You just get the rent, you fix toilets on Christmas Eve, and you get, or you hire a property manager. But anyway, you get, the best ways I've built wealth in my life, that's top one right there. Bitcoin's the other one, by the way. And so we had stable money very low note on it coming in. And in order to do what we want to do, we have to not have that stable money. We have to let the month-to-month renter leave. So we started talking tactical, and we started talking about, well, what does it really cost every month? Let's just say that. And how can we bring in at least enough to cover that and then build from that to build more money? And so the first month I lost money, but we had fun. The second month also lost money, and a roof needed to be replaced, which that hurt, but we put the right, like my choice was a $7,000 repair or replace the roof. And the person giving me the bid, who's a friend of mine, said, we can do it for 7,000, Nicole. And I was like, well, let's just, like humor me. How long is that going to last? 5 years. Okay. Can we talk about what a new roof looks like? It wasn't that much more money to get me a brand new metal roof properly installed. So we did that. And at that point, the bank account battery was done. And the third month, guess what happened? We made a profit. I'm going into winter. I actually don't expect to be making a profit as an Airbnb over the winter. You never know. So we added event venue rentals, and it's starting to stack. But I wouldn't say it's a wild success yet. I would just say that we know we have to take the risk to make the vision. And we were able to assess what that risk really was, so we knew what we were going to lose.
And as you brought up real estate, I love real estate. I think it's a great way to make a lot of wealth, not just money. I know people who have lost $50,000 or $100,000 in real estate because they were unlucky. They had a bad tenant who did a lot of damage that wasn't covered by insurance. It happens. I know people who have put money in Bitcoin and have lost money because they couldn't control their emotions, or because they lost the wallet, or because of whatever.
Don't lose your wallet. Don't lose your wallet to a flood that follows a hurricane, because your paper backup is also in your house, right? Ask somebody how they know. Yeah. Second location, trusted person, encrypted thumb drive. There you go.
Unless they get washed away.
Yeah.
In the same flood.
When everything's in one place and something goes wrong in one place, you can lose everything in the one place. And when you co-locate your servers on the East Coast in 2 different locations, and there's an unprecedented brownout situation, your website can go down for a week. Ask me how I know. Any other questions? Okay.
I'm pretty sure a single presenter can't come up where I have to ask some kind of question. So
It's your job.
yeah, it's my job now. I'm the new Jake. Pass the baton, buddy. Here it is. Cool. So what he's saying is absolutely true. 20 years in business, welding business, exposed to oil and gas in Oklahoma, cyclical. And every time that we would get comfortable, we'd be in a small, we started off in 2,500 square foot shop. We were losing projects because we didn't have the space. And every time we increased in the space, it was a huge risk. And sometimes when we went into the next space and, doubled or tripled our rent, that might have been right at a downturn. But if you can hang in there, if you can keep your powder dry kind of thing, prepare, there's a key word for us, right? For those downtimes, then you can get through it. What you'll find is, especially on cyclical things and huge things like COVID that are unprecedented, if you can stay in your market while others are falling out, on the other side of it, if you can just freaking make it, then you will be more successful than you could have ever dreamed. Your competition drops out. You have the staying power. There's just something about persevering that the universe rewards. So highly recommended. Are you a tax attorney or like a CPA, or you're a tax attorney?
I'm an attorney. I do taxes for my clients as well if they want me to.
Okay, cool.
So, and it's a fact. There are more millionaires after the Great Depression than before the Great Depression. Because a lot of people made a lot of money in the Great Depression. Most people didn't. Some people made a lot.
Yeah, and it didn't have to be something revolutionary either. I mean, the trades are huge right now, and it's just the same basic stuff we've always been doing: the HVAC, the electricians, the plumbers, the welders, and who would have thought that we're coming into an age where the blue collar guys have so much upside potential. I mean, it's incredible. So. I want to reach out to you at some point because I have a CPA I really don't even have a tax attorney. I have a CPA, and we flat out had tax people are very practical. So I've told him, I'm like, we probably need to break up. We don't see eye to eye. And he goes, absolutely. Yeah. You have a lot more. What's that?
Did you do it on Christmas?
Oh, no. I did break up with a girl on her birthday a long time ago. So same kind of similar story. She was going to have me meet her parents for the first time. It just is too fast. So anyway, but he's very practical guy, and he said, yeah, you have way more higher risk tolerance than I do, and which is not shocking. Is CPA. CPAs are very risk averse. So I'm interested in talking to you. Okay, thanks.
So what you're saying is buy the beans.
Who here doesn't know what she means when she says buy the beans? So, mind if I tell the story for you, or do you want to tell it?
You go ahead.
So 2020 happened, and nobody knew what was going to happen to the supply chains. COVID happened, and just everything was going to hell. And Nicole had a choice to make.
Oh no, my revenue went.
Oh, and yeah, and everyone's saving money, right? Because people are getting furloughed or losing jobs or worried about losing jobs. So what do you cut out first? A lot of times, the luxuries, the really nice coffee. I can get Folgers, right? So she's got no income, and she doesn't know what's going to happen in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
I didn't even know if it was real for sure at that point.
And she went out and she bought coffee beans, more, I think, than she had ever bought, by a sizable margin, to make sure she would have enough that if she got the orders, she could fill them until the supply chains got fixed. And I think that was a scary moment to make that decision.
So my business tripled in 2020. And I had beans.
And some people didn't
And
have
supply
beans.
chains, in fact, did get really messed up on the coffee market. But yeah.
Yeah, and some people didn't have beans, or when they did, that was way more expensive and they couldn't make a profit selling it.
All right. Well, Matthew, thank you. Great presentation. This is where we get to flow into the evening of dinner and revelry, and there will probably be another conversation over dinner, but we will see. Oh, Alan actually wants to blow your mind again, so I'm going to hand Alan Booker the mic, but I'd love if you just retreat behind these speakers with said mic.
Will do. I don't know about blow your mind, but I since today's theme is sovereignty, I'm just curious, how many of you use Gmail for your email? Okay, you're going to admit that. All right. Here's my challenge to you. Get off Gmail. Okay. I'll just say this. I can't say too much about Google directly. You can guess why. Okay. But I will say that I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get off of Gmail. If you are interested in your own sovereignty, I will say that we